various options. He's very passionate about young minds doing different businesses. He also mentioned that you can't even imagine what young people can create, a business idea and they can make it a success. So, next program we have is Ajinkya Kulkarni and Aditya Kulkarni. They are going to talk about startup. I will request Dr. Abhijit to come here on dais and request Mr. Ajinkya Kulkarni and Aditya Kulkarni. And these are two people, they are very, very passionate about their work and they want to share their challenges, their experiences about you regarding the startups. So, sir, please. Most welcome, let's give them a big round of applause. These two young gentlemen, they have not only decided to move ahead and do the business, because business is not easy. You don't know whether you will get some enough amount towards the end of the month. Service industry is better. आसानी से आपको नौकरी है, salary मिल जाएगी, boss will see the other things. But here, you're responsible for each and every mistake, and you're responsible for each and every success that you get in the business. So here, these two, they're going to share their experience. Most welcome to BBNG Parivartan conference, and you all are really eager to listen from you. I will request Sandra sir to tell us about them. Sir.
Pleasure introducing and welcoming Aditya and Ajinkya, a pride of Nasik and pride of Maharashtra and pride of India. I remember a few years back Aditya came to me आणि मला तेव्हा कळलं की स्टार्टअप बनवायचे आणि मग ते विकायचे हा एक बिझनेस आहे. So thank you for letting me know the new type of business. And pleasure in introducing one by one. Ajinkya Kulkarni comes with a rich experience of working in lending and financial services for 6+ years. He is personal finance writer and also recognized as LinkedIn Top 20 Voices of India. Before starting Vint Wealth, Ajinkya was Vice President and Head of Merchant Lending Business at M-Swipe. Through M-Swipe Merchant Lending, he enabled credit access to thousands of merchants who otherwise won't get the credit facilities. So whenever you next time see the M-Swipe machine, you should remember Ajinkya, that he is the person, he is the man, he is the brain behind this machine. In 2014, Ajinkya started creditperiod.com, an invoice bill discounting platform. And creditperiod.com was successfully sold to Flexi Electrons in February 2017. So I welcome Ajinkya. Let me take another privilege of introducing Aditya Kulkarni. Aditya is the founder of and CEO of STOAS Schools. I think we met in this reference only with your picture. STOA has been backed by marquee investors such as Nitin Kamal, Kunal Shah, Donkundwara. STOA Schools runs in a 6-month alternative MBA program, helping fellows break into the startup ecosystem. The program is highly appreciated by the working professionals and the industry for its innovative approach. Previously, Aditya built and excited 2 educational companies. Learning Outcome focuses on analytical needs of schools, and Baby Board help parents track back the education data. He is an alumni of BITS Pilani and IIM Bangalore. Another introduction which I should do, I formally and informally welcome his proud parents, who is the BBNG Vice President, Mr. Mukund Kulkarni. So please, sir. And I can understand at this age, when your children are successful, how much satisfied a parent is. So this phase of happiness and satisfaction is reflecting in his face. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, all. So I request, who is going to be very simple, sir? I'm there.
Talk about few of the concepts that are relevant to startups, and then ask Ajinkya about his journey at Winwell. To give you context, Winwell till date has raised about 50 CR in equity financing in last 18 months. Stoa School, which I run, we have raised about 15 CR in equity financing. And I'm sure a lot of you read about these things like valuation, या company's valuation असं आहे आणि सगळे तोट्यामध्ये चाललेले आहेत. There are all sorts of stories. So we're trying to demystify what. Ajinkya, the first question I have for you is people talk about startups, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of you also think that you are doing a startup, but what is the difference between a startup and a business? What is your mental model? So when you think of Win to Wealth as a company or as a startup, what are the risks? What are the rewards?
Yes. When we are discussing the government of India has launched startup program and everything. So people try to do startups, and what we see is that they don't know the difference between business and startup. And if you don't know the difference and then start a startup, you are likely to fail. So what is the difference? I think the core difference is startups. The primary job of startups is not to make money. Startups are they will make money because they have to sustain. But the primary job of generally when somebody starts a startup, it is to change. He has some kind of worldview and he wants to change it. So let's say when Amazon started, the vision or the problem statement was like, why should one buy from one bookstore or let's say one store? If anybody wants anything, that can get delivered to them and then they can simply order it one click. So that was kind of the motivation before while starting it. If you talk about Winwell, which I run, which is a bonds platform that gives 99% return rate. What we figured out, there are a lot of assets that were available for HNI in high ticket sizes. So minimum investment was 25 lakhs, 50 lakhs. And we wanted to invest in low ticket sizes. So we said this should be available for retail investors. Right? So that's the motivation. So it is an effort to change the world. Right? And obviously, if like world doesn't get changed so fast, right? So probability of it working out is very less, right? This is my second startup. Aditya has done two before, right? We haven't been yet massively successful, right? Because the inherent probability of success is very low, right? And if you look at business is very simple. This is the problem. I'm going to deliver your value. For delivering that value, I'm going to charge you some money, right? And so businesses are more stable, startups are more risky, and therefore the payout is also very high, right? So therefore, and the polarity of it is, if you are successful in changing the world, the reward is going to be very high. Especially with technology at hand, if you change the world, you are going to have massive customers, massive following, massive lot of things, right? Scale, and therefore the payout is going to be very high. Therefore, this business will become really large billion-dollar businesses. But obviously, a lot of glorified stories are there of valuation in EPC. But for every glorified story, there are about 50 which fail, right? And nobody really talks about them. And people also.
There is massive survivorship bias here, right? So when you read about startups in the newspaper, like the 99 which failed, they never get mentioned, and only the one startup that breaks out that gets talked about. Ajinkya, can you talk about risks here, right? Like, so for example, personally, how do you see what happens if Winwell succeeds? What happens if Winwell fails?
Yeah, what happens if succeeds? I mean, it will be a great outcome financially, right? But what we have seen also is like generally when you do a startup, you know whether you are going to be successful or not at least after 3-4 years, right? And there is a high chance that it will fail. So you should only do a startup if you are okay. If that fails after 5 years, you don't make any money, right? Because statistically it's proven that startups are not a great way to become rich. They are probably very legit way of becoming super rich, but a lot of people in that effort start actually lose the financial stability that they have also. So that's the risk, right? And we are very fortunate that we come from a business family. So we don't have to support our family, we have good support, and therefore we can take this risk, right? we are very privileged in that sense. But like, the risk is obviously that you lose even the whatever you
Somebody here is most founders never make any money, right? Like that is the truth of startups. That few founders go on to make ton of money, but most founders end up with nothing at the end of 4-5 years. And I'm sure in this year you will read a lot more stories about startups dying because we were in a different cycle last year because all the money from US was flowing. When do you know when you're ready to start up, Ajinkya?
That's a very difficult question. Everybody has to answer it. So especially in all low probability events I've seen, whether it is becoming actor, let's say becoming a cricketer, everybody overestimates themselves or underestimates themselves. Even for that matter, any art, or let's say कोणी गातं, प्रत्येकाला वाटतं मी आपण छान गातो, पण जेव्हा तुम्ही गाता तेव्हा ते लक्षात येतं. So it is very difficult to predict. I think you should be very financially stable to do so that for 5 years you can survive without it, right? And second, you need to have a lot of context. And third, which a lot of people miss, is craziness, right? So these wars are not won by smart people, these wars are won by crazy people, right? Who are ready to bet everything. Imagine somebody who is out there wanting to win and he's ready to not make money for 5 years, 10 years. Amazon was not profitable for 25 years. So somebody has that kind of craziness, that kind of patience, right? And that will be the last man standing will win, and he will win huge. Right, but so all these things, like there are a lot of factors, but I think biggest is financial stability.
Got it. Can you talk about the journey of raising money? So you have raised 3 rounds of funding, the seed one, the pre-seed one, and I think you're raising another round. It is in the process. But what was it like talking to institutional investors like Arkham Ventures, Clear4? How was it like raising from angel investors like Kunal Shah, Nitin Kaman? Can you talk about if somebody wants to raise money, how do they go about it?
Yes, I think before we are going into that, I'd like to talk about how valuations are decided. So now we saw that these are very high-paying bets. So if they work out, you're going to win huge. So therefore, startups get like very good valuation, right? And that valuation is primarily driven by ownership, right? So, in fact, when we were raising a round, we said if you want to dilute 10%, we'll only take 20 million valuation. If you want to dilute 20%, we'll ask for 30 million valuation. If you dilute 30%, we'll ask for 40 million valuation. So it is completely abstract, right? It is more of a forward-looking, right? It is like, if this is successful at $1 billion, what I'm going to get, that's what the investor is thinking, and then it comes to ownership, right? And that's where the fight starts. It is not, so for raising round, you have to really believe that you have to become $1 billion business. That means once you raise money, in 5 to 7 years, you have to build a revenue of 750 crore per year, right? And then 200 crore of profit every year back, right? And you have to make the investors believe that you will achieve that scale and that fast, right? And if you see, even in listed market, there are only 350 companies who have $1 billion plus valuation, right? So it is such a tough task, and therefore, if investors believe that somebody can create that kind of value, they will give valuation, right? And that's how valuation works.
Got it. So the point here is startups, if you want to raise money from investors, you need a very convincing answer how you are going to scale the business to 750 CR in revenue in about 7 to 8 years, because that is the timeline that their LPs have. So how the VC world works is they have raised money from what they call as limited partners, and they have promised about 3x or 30% IRR return to those investors, which means in 7 years they need to return the fund, which essentially means that they take 100 risky bets, and even if 2-3 bets out of those return 100x or 200x for them, their whole fund is returned. But rest of the 97 companies basically die. And once you raise money from the investor, every investor is actively going to push you to die, basically, right? Because they either want you to become that one company, or they are fine if you are those 97 dead companies. So this is the exit, this is the VC method, right? So I'm sure Shark Tank India, like a lot of people have these ideas, and it's perfectly fair to think that we want to raise money from investors, but it's a very risky game, right? And most industry terminology, Series A, Series B, Series C funding, most companies die at Series B because there is something beyond Series B only get growth capital, which means you should have proven that there is product market fit, that there is actually pull from the market, right? Like there is some sort of flywheel network effect that is going on for your business. So for example, when Wind2Wealth launched their last bond asset, which was 50 CR, that whole 50 CR asset got subscribed in 45 minutes. When they did the next asset, it was even faster. But then they got ambitious and then they launched a 125 CR asset. And they realized that now we are entering a different market because every startup goes through early adopters and then then you go mainstream. So at every point, right, like you are feeling. So for example, Stoa, when I started and Mr. Samdev was mentioning it started as a brand called Questo, which was a teenager well-being program. I ran it for 3 months, saw that it was not scaling, I shut it down. Then I started building a software solution for teachers to teach online. This was pre-pandemic. We saw that again that was not something that was creating pull. So in 6 months, we went through 4 iterations of our idea, shut down 4 businesses, and then we launched Store. And the moment we launched, this was an alternative MBA program, which was at that point 3 months. Within first 5 days, we had 1,000 applications for the first 25 seats. So we knew that there is some market here, right? And even after that, we have probably changed our business model, pricing, the duration, everything at least 4 times in the last 18 months. And we are even now, after reaching, in 18 months, we reached a revenue run rate of 2 CR a month. Even now, we are disrupting ourselves. We are right now changing our business model. We basically said that we are not going to do this for long. We are making some changes, of course, but so it is a continuous journey of sort of breaking your, and I'm pretty sure people who work for us feel like we are crazy in some sense. But once you get on that treadmill of having raised funds, then you either die or you become a hero, right? Like those are the 2 possible outcomes.
No, it's not just the people. I would like to say
So Ajinkya, let's talk about raising equity, right? So if one wants to raise funds, let's assume that somebody understands these risks and still wants to raise funds from angel investors, founders, some of these micro VC funds. In fact, there is one micro VC fund in Pune, which is one of the biggest micro VC funds called Better Capital, which is invested in both wind and solar. How do you go about raising funds?
Yes, I think it's pretty easy and pretty difficult. So it's like a game you play. So once you master it, it becomes easy. What is very important is you demonstrate your right to win. So जेव्हा तुम्ही एवढी मोठी कंपनी बनवणार तेव्हा त्याचे बरेच कॉम्पिटिशन येणार. So how are you going to protect and still make money is the key question. And this is an idea stage company. So lot of things have to be proven. Revenue, profitability, these are at least 7-8 years down the line. So how do you inspire belief? This is the best storytelling. How do you inspire belief? If the investor believes you, he will give you the money. And if he doesn't, they will not. I mean, when we raised our 2 million round, which is 15 crore, we had done a POC of 10 lakh rupees. We had just said we can raise 10 lakh rupees, right? But we could build that space. So it's a lot about storytelling and also about your background, about your commitment, right? So are you full time on it? Are you really committed to scaling it? Or do you want to see कि scale होगा तो ठीक है नहीं तो जितना होगा उतना सही. And investors have a lot of tactics to judge you on this metrics. And once they see a founder that good, they generally fund you. So you also have to be that crazy and also have to give right answers. So it is like cracking interview in a basic sense.
Got it. If there are any questions, we can quickly take them. Yeah. But to summarize, this whole startup thing, especially the difference between startup and business, and I'm sure everybody wants to call their business a startup. But startups have a very different risk profile, which means they need to make that revenue bump in about 7 to 8 years. And in that process, they could possibly die. Which means most startups go through multiple pivots, as the industry term is, multiple changes to their business models. If you see Ola, for example, Ola started as like an airport taxi, then they became point-to-point taxi, then they started Ola Share, then they got into Ola Food Delivery, then they got into I think Ola is a postpaid product now. Now they electric scooter. I'm sure most of you are reading stories about it. Now, all of this is essentially search for how does this company live up to that valuation. I think Ola is valued at about 75,000 crores today. So this is a very risky game. Now, the way to succeed at this game, you need to chase after really big markets. So for example, when I've seen Ajinkya's investor presentation, and what he essentially says is, there are going to be about 300 million people in the middle India who will invest this much money and they will be looking for better returns. So overall, this is like, let's say, $15–20 million market. I'm going to capture 10% of it, and that is what makes my business interesting. When so for example, Stoa story is, we basically say that, hey, MBA, CAT preparation, MBA, paying loans after MBA, it takes like 5–6 years of journey. We are going to create an efficient path where in 12 months we are able to get people to their career-defining opportunity. And like the mathematics is, the program costs 2.5 lakh rupees, we'll get 50,000 people. Out of those 50,000 people, 20,000 people will cross our level 1 examination, 5,000 people will cross our level 2 examination, we'll be able to get a job to all our level 1 people, we'll be able to get a much higher paying job to all our level 2 people, and I don't have to do this in one single geography. To reach that 50,000 number, I could be in India, I could be in Singapore, Indonesia, US, and even Europe or Middle East. Right? Now, you really need to chase after a big market. If you want to. The second thing is problem statement definition, and the formula is very simple actually. It is X is a problem for Y because of Z, which means X is a problem for Y, which is the user persona, because of Z. Z is the prevailing condition or the inefficiency in the market. We spoke about big market, problem statement definition, and then you need to continuously iterate towards getting product market fit. And all of this while doing storytelling, while juggling multiple hats. And technology or internet is a distributor. Ajinkya's introduction, I think Mr. Sande mentioned that he is LinkedIn, whatever, top 20 voices of India. His LinkedIn posts have generated about 33 million? 15 million. So about 2 CR impressions in last 1 year. Which means he is able to get attention from people using LinkedIn. About 2 crore impressions in last year. If you have heard about Ankur Warikoo, his monthly impressions are about in the range of 2 CR, right? So how do you use internet to distribute your business? So Ajinkya has used LinkedIn very powerfully to build distribution for print. We have used Twitter extensively to, in fact, most of our revenue, and this is it can be surprising how these social media tools can be used. Most of our revenue is organic, which means we haven't really spent any money on advertising. And whatever 10–12 years we have generated in the last 18 months, it has come organically just by doing Twitter and LinkedIn content. So, if you are thinking seriously about building a high-risk startup, my advice would be to understand this is like some Sanskrit that gets spoken about in Bangalore and Delhi circles, right? So, one needs to learn that language and how that is spoken, what kind of stories get told, how do you say that I'm really ambitious, how do you demonstrate proof of work. So these are all the things, and we just thought, the point is not to sort of say that traditional businesses are not valuable. Of course, for the risk that they have, the rewards are amazing. But this is sort of a game, right? Like this is a high risk, high reward game. You play, you win big, you lose, you lose. So, but happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I want to add here, the point we are trying to make that he is always greener on the other side. Someday we wake up and think, yeah, our profitable business is a अच्छा रहता कि 14 घंटा काम नहीं करना होता शायद dinner को time पे घर पे आना चाहिए. And because there is so much craze about startups, जो सही business run कर रहे हैं profitable, उनको लगता है आपको भी raise करना चाहिए, इनको इतना valuation रहे. So what we discount is probability, right? And so startups are so risky that there is a very good saying by someone, when you should do startup, when you cannot not do it. जैसे तुम्हारे सुज़त नसेल तर करा. So and when you are completely okay losing money and all that emotional, turmoil, ups and downs, if you are ready for that, then only do startup. So generally speaking, I've seen after talking to a lot of entrepreneurs is running a profitable business, stable business is highly is going to make a great lifestyle change. A generational wealth can be created here. After a point, money also doesn't have that much of value. Right? So these are all paper valuations. when I raised my last round, I was talking to Baba and said, "हमने ये round raise किया." He was like, "यार तुम paper में लेना हो मेरा actual पैसा." Right? So and this is the truth. Like when we are discussing, I mean, there is a lot of romanticization, a lot of glory given to startups, but there are too many risks involved, which people don't understand from outside. So that was I would like to convey.
Yes, sir.
How many startups in manufacturing are there? Most of this you are talking about are platforms where
It is very difficult to do a startup in manufacturing. I mean, the hard tech or deep tech startups are very few, and especially in India, there is no investor appetite, right? Like, so for example, recently a company got funded, it's called Pixel, which sent satellites into orbit. But those stories are far and few. I mean, because inherently manufacturing is a capital-intensive business, and most startups are asset-light, right? Like, so for example, I deliver a MBA program online. I don't have a campus. I don't have permanent faculty. I mean, I just have 30 people working for me who are educating 100 people month on month. And these people are learning on Zoom. So the problem with scaling, 7 वर्षामध्ये 750 करोडचं गती ते मॅन्युफॅक्चरिंग मध्ये बसणं थोडं अवघड आहे. नाही असं नाही. जसं Ather Energy is a company. I'm sure you have seen some of you have seen the bikes. But they went through, I think, a period, 3-4 वर्ष they still in mode which is like they had investors who were patient enough with them to let them build the bike. But manufacturing stories are...
They are also, I mean, they don't have real PE investors, VC investors. They are social, like a lot of social capital, and that company, I guess, are 8-9 years old. The product is good, but they haven't become a $1 billion business. So VC would not think it as a great investment. So manufacturing is really difficult to scale fast.
So what is the legal repercussion? So after that, what that startup founder would be doing, how he will be treated?
It is not a debt, right? It is equity financing. So you are not personally liable to pay anything back.
Yeah,
But
there would be some clauses which can be hampering, which can be dangerous.
no, it's not really that. But like, I don't think any investor is very interested in going to courts. And that's not how funds operate. They do a lot of due diligence. So after I got a commitment for, let's say, investing 10 million in my company, and it just happened. There would be a 2-3 month process where due diligence will happen, my numbers would be checked, there would be personal due diligence of the founders, etc. So I haven't seen a lot of cases end up in courts or something.
Because when I have some discussion, this is the fear factor that most of people, particularly production entrepreneurs have. So what will happen if, okay, I'm okay with losing, but what will happen to me after I lose?
Nothing will happen, and people will probably fund you again.
Yeah, go ahead.
The gist that I got from your conversation was startup is all about making millions.
About?
Startup is all about making millions.
Yes, you can.
Just that?
I think there is impact, right? Like you can't just, money could not be the only reason. So for example, it is an outcome, right? But the input has to be about some sort of brand purpose, right? Like, so for example, if you look at most of the companies, they have certain purpose. Like for example, Airbnb, they simply, they said like, I want to get people to have that local living experience, not just stay in hotels, right? And that is the larger brand purpose which has driven that company to become what it is today. If you look at Coinbase, any of these companies, Amazon, Flipkart.
So I have a startup, which I started 5 years ago. It's in the HR domain. But when you just mentioned that you started with some product, it did not work, so you switched on to a second one. That did not work, so you switched on to the third one. That is why I wanted to find out, because for me it is more a question of passion about what I have been doing for 40 years in my career and bringing it to the rest of the world. Because I have seen the benefits, what I have done, and the benefits have been earned by the companies I work for, and then so the basic difference, that is why I was a bit surprised.
So it is also about realizing whether, like, I might feel that there is a market need, and I go to the market with that messaging or that product, and I realize that not enough number of people want to buy it, or they don't want to pay the money I want them to pay given my cost structure. And then you basically say it's emotionally you cannot be attached to ideas if you are trying to build a big business. Like, that is the reality of this market. I mean, I'm not saying it is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is how most founders operate.
So just my bit of experience here that yes, getting traction is difficult, especially for a product like ours. We are in the HCMS domain, cloud-based product which is there. But it is passion which has been driving us. And when it comes to funding, we don't have to go looking for funding. Our customers walk to us saying that are you looking for funding. So just because those who are interested in starting up, there is the other side of story also exists. That is what I just wanted to bring.
I mean, as we said, there are all sorts of other ways in which you can build businesses.
So I just wanted to share my experience.
This is the most riskiest game. I'll take one last question.
Sorry, I just want to ask, as someone who is a first-time investor in startup, what are the few checkpoints that he needs to be aware of, and what is the usual payback period that he needs to look at, and the risk associated with it? Just making sure.
Don't invest in startup. If you're an investor, the day you write the check, right? Like, this is actually what I told my angel investors, especially those who are investing first time. The day you give me the check, you forget, like, this is zero for you. I mean, it might return something to you, but the probability is really less. So, angel investing is like, it's like a club membership, like a fancy club membership. You should be ready to basically, like, assume that it is zero the day you write the check. Right? Because it is equity, it is not debt. But I hope this was useful.